is reconvening, and we're going to pick up public comments on agenda item number 5, the permanent bear regulation, CGR 393. And so, anyway, who is our next?
Eric Schwamberger.
Eric. Okay, you're ready to go on.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Eric Schwamberger, and I am a member of the Bill Bear Hunt, Nevada. I have a PhD. A large part of my professional career has been spent modeling, analyzing, and interpreting large biological data sets. The justification for this hunt comes from the model estimates of population and population increase based on data collected from 1997 to 2008. It's difficult in 3 minutes to address all the points that Mr. Lackey made earlier, but I will address a few of them. We still have questions about Indale's, not about the data, but about Indale's interpretation of the modeled results, and that is what I would like to challenge. Indale's modeling estimates that the bear population at the end of 2008 was about 250 bears. This does not indicate a population increase from previous estimates. This supports previous Indale statements going back to 1990 that the population is stable and is not increasing. The 200 to 300 range is comparable to population ranges previously estimated by Indale and others. At the same time, we heard earlier Indale stating that modeling estimates that the rate of population increase is 16% annually. These are incompatible results. How can the estimated population for 2008 be the same as 1990, yet still be increasing 16% every year? If the population is not increasing 16% annually, which is what we repeatedly heard, then for what period of time is the population increasing? Is it 1 year? Is it 3 years? Is it 5 years? We didn't hear average. Okay. These are critical questions. Indale did not provide any answers beyond their simple statement that the rate of population increase is 16% annually, nor did they say what statistically significant level that 16% was. Indale bases its recommendation for a bear hunt on this estimated 16% annual population, but they failed to demonstrate that the modeling used to generate this estimate is valid or that the estimate itself is valid. The present and future credibility of this commission and of Indale continues to be at risk if the decision is made to make this hunt permanent based on potentially flawed, inconsistent, and incomplete model data results.
15 seconds.
Nevada's bear population may also be at risk. On behalf of No Bear Hunt Nevada, I ask that Indale's modeling results and the interpretation of the results be subject to independent peer review, and that there be an independent panel to review all the available bear literature to resolve the outstanding questions on bear population, the estimates, and the population dynamics.
Thank you.
Rachel Flower.
I'm not here.
Mark Smith.
Not here.
Dan Lavich.
Chairman, Commissioner, my name is Dan Lavish. I'm a veterinarian. I have a master's degree. I'm board certified veterinary ophthalmologist. I'm certified in 2 faculties, peer-reviewed journals, written 3 textbooks. I have reviewed Carl Lackey's data and his coworkers, and I find it extremely valid and important. I think this is good scientific data. It's a good starting point. The way to further these studies are to allow continued research into these bear hunts. So I support the bear hunt. I realize it may not be held every year, but I think it's very important. Carl and his co-workers should be commended for the great work. Thank you.
Please, no clapping. Part of keeping the decorum is to respect everything, and so let's try to keep it quiet.
Barbara Moss.
Not here.
Kukoc. Maureen.
My name is Sharon Kukoc. I'm from Incline Village and I'm a board member of Millbury, Nevada. I was wanting to address another item to do with Professor Tavis, but I'm going to instead skip to something else. I've had an interesting conversation with a gentleman with a gentleman who is into hunting, which is fine. So I'd like to bring some points that I have in my heart and mind to this talk. No Bear Hunt, Nevada is not opposed to hunting. We have never propounded that. Am I still up there? Right, sorry. Okay, we have never propounded that we are opposed to hunting, ever. However, I'm sure within our group of approximately 20,000 members and growing, there are some opposed to hunting. A very disturbing fact to us is the fact that recently a pro-hunting group accused us of being against hunting, maligning this organization. Very simply, this is a total untruth and a lie. We have never made any reference to being opposed to hunting because we are not. We have welcomed hunters who join us in protesting the bear hunt and are certainly with us in protesting the permanent hunt. I think kind of in our hearts, shooting a bear is rather like shooting a cow in a field. So that's kind of where we come from, but we've never, ever said that hunting, we're opposed to hunting. Let's see, our bottom line is and always has been a continuing total opposition to the bear hunt, but never hunting. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kat Simons.
Everybody take the mic out and hold it. We'll be able to hear you better. My name is Kat Simmons from Gardnerville, Nevada. Gentlemen and ladies of the board and gentlemen and ladies in the audience, I'd like to thank every one of you for being here. Truly, this is an issue that brings up a lot of passion on both sides. We're not going to extinguish that passion on either side today, but I would like to present to the board my reason why I'm adamantly against the bear hunt. I'm a third-generation native Nevadan. The three people I love the most in my life are hunters. It's my dad, Ted Short, former Washoe County Commissioner, and my two brothers. I'm not against hunting. I understand that hunting is a big part of the family order. I understand that there was a day that a family would perish if you didn't hunt and bring home a big meal for the family. I think it has some real anthropological roots, but I think we're kind of past that. We also used to own people. Okay, that used to be okay. That's not okay now. So I would like to propose that we evolve past some of the things that we stay indoctrinated in. I am not against hunting. I am against hunting bears. I'm a mother. I'm a single mother. The greatest compliment I can ever be paid is to be called a mama bear. And the reason for that is because I protect and I love my children. The research I've done since I started with this group, which has only been about 6 months, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a PhD, but I'm a mother. I have found these mother bears to be so incredibly loving and effective. When you're taking out 6 sows that are, probably at least 3 to 4 years old, if they're worth shooting, you've probably killed 3 bears at the time because she's either pregnant to deliver cubs in February or she's got cubs back in the den. So now you've killed 18 bears with your 6 sows. We're already halfway there. Okay, we're halfway there. We got 3 dead sows. Was that hunting course that you taught, was that to help people understand how to not kill the females? I think they need a refresher course because we're halfway to quota on the sows. Okay? When you field dress them, did you find cubs in there? Do you eat the cubs? Are they tender? I don't know. How does that work? As a mother, I want to know. Who is checking out to see if these cubs had babies? That's what I want to know. Who's doing the reclamation on the damage? Who's going out there to see if these cubs are still in a den somewhere? Is there money coming from NDOW to fund that? Like when you dig a hole in the earth and you damage it, you have to put money into a reclamation fund to fix the mess? Who's going to fix the mess? I know people personally who have watched cubs be
15
brought
seconds.
in. They have been brought in and they're a mess, they're crying, they have families, they are sad. Okay, I'm not a scientist. This isn't science. This is just about integrity. This is about integrity, and it's about doing the right thing. Trophy hunting has no place on Nevada's permanent hunting docket at all.
Thank you.
Billy Howard.
I'll just hold this to you. You want to go over here?
Actually, there's one.
Oh, okay.
I'll talk there.
Okay.
We have a lot of cords. I'm sure you're on.
If you're going to stay home,
No, I'll start. Yeah, so there are 2 pages to each of those. And there's another. Sorry about this one.
Chairman Macbeth, members of the Commission, I speak for a lot of people when I thank you for your service. It's clear you are engaged and thoughtful in this matter. I'm sure it sometimes seems like a thankless job, as it does for a lot of the volunteer CAD members. And thank you all. I'm here to speak for the 18,750 people who couldn't make it today, who continue to communicate to you their strident objection to this regulation. Our organization is a broad coalition of groups and individuals opposed to the bear hunt, including hunters such as yourselves. You can read their comments on the submitted flash drive, and you will hear from some of them over these 2 days. These many months, we would have hoped to hear strong, fact-based, intelligent, and compelling evidence as to why the public, who is against this hunt, on no uncertain terms, must accept it. Instead, the deck is stacked against us. You, hunters to the person, hold all the votes. We would rather hope the dialogue happening from here to there would occur instead laterally amongst yourselves. If indeed we can have a hunt, is it truly in the best interest of the hunters that we should have the hunt? Our majority is not anti-hunting, but the bear hunt supporters may be spawning what they most dread. More and more people who were fine with the wildlife situation 1 year ago are now questioning, due to the controversy stirred by what they see as an unnecessary bear hunt, the motives of all of Nevada's hunting industry, which is chartered by the public through the legislature, and are now asking if this commission and the agency are truly dedicated to protecting all our wildlife, as we had previously trusted. I admonish you once again to heed the state law by which you are bound, NRS 233B.061. The agency shall consider fully all written and oral submissions respecting the proposed regulation. I am submitting 18,750 communications against the hunt. As Chris Healy said last January on Bay Area television, the majority of input has been, don't hunt the bears. Since there has been a cavalcade of signatures, emails, comments, articles, and letters to the editor in umpteen publications, the overwhelming majority against the hunt, including the
15
Nevada
seconds.
Appeal poll, which is at this very moment 85% against. If the people cannot control their government, if what is done in our name is done despite our objection, it will be NoBearHuntNevada.org's duty to continue to work with the people of Nevada to turn this wrong into right. Government must be responsible and accountable to all people equally. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Billy.
I believe it's Beverly McGrath. McGrath.
Commander Reister, one question for you. We would like to make these signatures available to people to peruse, and so would it be all right to leave them for anyone who would like to look through them? They're in our possession. You have a disc that has all of these scanned on them, so you can see them yourself. If anybody in the room wants to, just page through them.
Okay, well, I'm going to make you responsible for them.
That's very good. Okay, thank you.
Lynn Carroll.
My name is Lynn Carroll. I'm from Incline Village. I've lived here since 1974. I've been to meetings, not wildlife, but TRPA and many other government agencies for decades now. And one of the things I've learned is that people always say, I'm for this, I'm against this, but what you guys are really looking for are alternative solutions or solutions, because we're all looking for consensus of something that could satisfy all parties. So bear with me, this only is slightly tongue-in-cheek, but these are some of my thoughts as to solutions to the problem. We have an established hunting community, and I understand that it is not only a tradition, but it's an enjoyable adventure to go out and with your families camping and enjoy this experience. I don't see why we can't just kind of change the rules of how hunting takes place. Instead of having the guns equipped with bullets, why couldn't we equip them with vegetable-dyed paintball and have the scopes include a camera so that the hunters could go out and shoot the bears, get a picture of it, that they have a paintball proof that they shot a bear, but no bears die. I grant you that wouldn't solve the problem of those people who are dependent on bear meat for survival, but I think that's a very small percentage of our population. So as I see it, that would be one way that you could have a bear hunt, but at the same time, nobody would die. There are other kinds of creative solutions, but of course most of the world is not open to the idea of creative solutions. I suggested in one thing that if we're going to have a bear hunt, then let's make it a fair fight. You and a knife, okay? So if a hunter wants to chase a bear with a knife, now one of the commissioners suggested that a spear would make it okay, So I'm willing to go along with a spear. If you're willing to hunt with spears, it's a fair fight, I just want to make this a fair situation. And I also suggested that maybe we should increase the fees to $10,000 for each tag, because then at least we'd have, if 40 tags were sold, $400,000 that would give us the wherewithal financially in an economy that's totally strapped for money to actually have bear personnel with Carillion bear dogs like they have done in some of the shows I've seen on PBS, so that we could help deal with the nuisance bears, we could help deal with controlling the bear populations that are coming into the cities. I'm going to end with a final emotional story that I only heard this week, that there was a woman in my neighborhood who was at home, and in the morning she started hearing these piercing cries, and she realized that it was from an animal that had either been wounded or was dying. And finally the cries were silenced by a shot. And that's in our neighborhoods. That is not what you intend, and that is not what we want to experience.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't hear the 15 seconds.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't hear you.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
so
I'm
sorry.
sorry. I try not to interrupt. Terry Kielhofer.
Just a couple of things. Number one, I'm kind of mystified why this meeting is taking place this summer. Why don't you wait until the bear hunt this year is finished and then analyze the data? Then you can see whether you want to have one the following year. The only other thing I object to pretty badly, and she's talking about fairness, is you ought to outlaw the use of these damn dogs. I mean, there's nothing more cowardly than chasing an animal up a tree with a dog that has a radio collar and shooting a stationary exhausted bear out of a tree. So that's something for everybody to think about. Thank you.
Just let me respond to your first question. The reason we're doing the bear regulation right now is we passed a bear regulation that was temporary during the legislative session back last December, and it expires automatically on November 1st. In February, we approved a bear season that goes to the end of the year, and so we need to get this permanent regulation put in place so that the hunters that were successful in drawing the tags for the bear hunt are able to hunt the entire season that they were represented that they would have. And so that's our urgency to get it done, before November 1st. And so it's really a separate issue from the issue of looking at this hunt after it's all over. We're going to definitely do that in February. And so whether it's a permanent regulation or not, we're going to look at it.
So there is a chance that the findings from this year's bear hunt could play into your decision about permanent hunt?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Al Taylor.
Yeah, can you, by any chance, give me 30 seconds? It takes longer for a lawyer to quit talking than my name's Hal Taylor. I was one of the attorneys who was involved in the litigation involving the bear hunt. And I want to give you some options also, and I want you to keep your options open with regards to the permanent regulation. I'm going to suggest that what you really ought to do is think about tabling this regulation. Data are a moving target, and you've seen that already today. Some of you may have questions about the data or other issues with regards to this hunt. Therefore, you do not have to push into a decision tomorrow, yes or no on the permanent regulation. You may have another suggestion. I'm going to suggest to you that tabling the regulation gives you additional time to make a determination about what you really want to do. Now, if in fact, and I think this is consistent, when this was discussed originally, it was determined that it was stated by board members that this was an experimental hunting period. I'm suggesting that you still treat it the same way and that you wait until you've got all the data together. Due deference to the CAB member, the language in the permanent regulation says that you will, in fact, determine the harvestable population of bears will often become shall in government, and therefore I'm going to suggest that the permanent regulation would, in fact, lead to another hunt. I'm also going to suggest something else to you. If, in fact, you choose not to adopt the permanent regulation, this time you still got the issue of the lapsing temporary regulation. If, in fact, you truncate the hunt to November 1st, you'll still have 39 days to go to the hunt. If I'm reading it right, you've only got 34 days. You're only 34 days in. You're not even halfway into a hunt that would end on November 1st. That gives the hunters a good opportunity to do what they've got their tags to do, and yet it doesn't get you all of the issue of the lapse of the temporary regulation. And of course, the hunt could end next week anyway, depending on quotas. So I'm going to suggest to you that the best thing, if you're not sure, if you're not actually sure right now or tomorrow that you ought to adopt this permanent regulation. If you make a motion to table the regulation, you can always, when you feel sure, take that permanent regulation off the table, bring it back before the commission again, and deal with it at that time. And you may have a better idea, and you may have other ideas to put with that, but I'm going to suggest that may be a way for you to deal with the data in a way that you can feel comfortable that you're making the right decision. Again, thank you very much for listening to all these comments. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Geraldine Rover.
Geraldine Ruger. It's like the gun keeper. My name is Geraldine Ruger, and I'm with Guardians for Animals. And I just want to say that the biologists at UNR, they tell us that the bear habitat, as well as other wildlife, is being degraded and eliminated in Nevada at an alarming rate, especially along the Carson front. Protection of habitat and travel corridors should be a priority, they say. They say give them some place to go if and when trash becomes unaccessible. Now, as far as the bear population is concerned, it's all been very vague and nebulous, as far as Mr. Lackey not giving us an exact figure for the population. So I'm going to go by what the biologists say, and they say between 200 and 300. I think that's a small amount, does not warrant killing them. Again, going by the fact that they haven't given us an exact figure of the population. And according to the International Hunter Education Association, approximately 1,000 people in the United States and Canada are accidentally shot every year, and just under 100 of those accidents are fatalities. Now, when Mr. Lackey was talking this morning, he said there were no accidents reported in Nevada as far as hunting accidents, but I don't think that's entirely true, because my husband has talked to some hunters who have had accidents, but they don't report it. The reason for that is because they have this machismo image, and they don't want people to know that they've had an accident. Fewer than 2 humans a year are killed by non-captive black bears. That's less than the number of hunting accidents. And I want to talk about this article that was in the paper this morning about the hunter. And the hunter, somewhat misleading, because we say the hunter who mistakenly shot the grizzly bear. He didn't mistakenly shoot the bear. He's a hunter. He went there to hunt, and that was his primary goal, was to kill this bear. Unfortunately, when he shot the bear, and they don't really tell you this in the article, is that he left the bear for dead. He was in pain and he was suffering. So yes, if you have an animal that's in that condition, it will attack you. There has never been a documented unprovoked attack by a black bear in Nevada. The idea that when bears lose their fear of people, they become more likely to attack is really a myth. Bear researchers across America have found that such bears are no more likely to attack and may less likely to attack than other bears. Also, I think it's very sad that it doesn't say very much for the scientists and the biologists that the only way we can address the problem is by killing them.
One thing I want to address, I think there's just a misconception there with regard to the statement that he mistakenly shot the bear, the one that you're talking about. I think he had a tag for a black bear. You can't shoot grizzly bears in the lower 48, so the mistake was that he shot a grizzly bear as opposed to a black bear. He didn't properly identify the animal. That's what the reference to mistakenly shot the bear is.
But they didn't tell you that the bear was left to die, and he was actually still alive, and that's why they were attacked.
Okay.
Larry Johnson.
Larry Johnson, President, Coalition for Nevada's Wildlife. submitted into the record a written comment that we presented to the Washoe County Game Board in support of permanent bear regulations, still pertinent to the Wildlife Commission. The Nevada Department of Wildlife has collected more scientific data on black bear than any other game animal in this state. The science is clear and irrefutable in justifying the proposed bear hunt. State statutes mandate the management of our wildlife resources on scientific principles. To deny this hunt would be a blatant disregard of state law. We cannot succumb to attempts by opponents to manage wildlife based upon emotion and misconception. The ongoing bear hunt has not precipitated the heinous results and conflicts prophesized by opponents. This should have been obvious to all rational citizens, since hunting activities for other species have been successfully performed for decades throughout the counties involved by a much greater number of hunters. We feel it's your duty to uphold the scientific management of wildlife in spite of the sensationalism and misinformation spread by opponents. As sportsmen have insisted many times in the past, if science includes insufficient numbers of a species that are present at any point in time, quotas will be zeroed out as long as it takes for that population to recover. Management unit closures for sage grouse and bighorn sheep are classic examples of such closures based upon management. We feel you must vote for the formulation of permanent regulations. This letter was signed by myself as president. Also, I'm a director of Nevada Bighorns Unlimited, signed by Tom Smith, vice president, who's also a director of Trout Unlimited, Scott Carone, director, who's also president of Safari Club International Northern Nevada chapter, Ed Wagner, a director, who's also director of Nevada Wildlife Federation, Joel Blakesley, director, who's also president of Nevada Trapper Association, Judy Karen, director, who is also director of Safari Club International Northern Nevada chapter, Bodie Monroe, who's also a director of Trout Unlimited, Jim Purrier, who's also a member of Nevada Guides and Outfitters Association, Bob Bruner, Willie Mullaney, director, who's also a director of Nevada Waterfowl Coalition, Mike Bertoldi, director, who is also a director of Nevada Bighorns Unlimited. Since I'm a 6-minute guy, not a 3-minute guy, there's been testimony suggestion that Native Americans oppose bear hunting. I want to spell that myth right away. If you refer to Smithsonian Institute Volume 8 that has long chapters on my tribe, the Concow from Feather River country, you'll see that we proudly hunted bear for its skin, for its meat, and guess what? For trophies. Guys danced around the campfire saying, I survived. We had a tribal hunt where we challenged grizzly bears, California grizzly, out of their dens in the springtime. No meaner critter exists. And guys who were survivors of that, let me tell you, they were men. In the volume of the California grizzly, documents Jedediah Smith in 1828 at the mouth of Chico Creek, sitting around a campfire with my people, eating bear that his hunters had killed, that had a lance and an arrow embedded in this bear's lungs. And guess what? My people rejoiced in that hunt. It was part of our heritage, part of our religion, part of our culture, and trust me, nothing evil is going to be said in my presence about Native Americans hunting bears. Hunting small populations, that's been brought up again and again today. We have decades of performance records of hunting small populations in the state of Nevada. Bighorn sheep are probably the best example of that, where we have islands of habitat with small populations with quotas carefully set based upon the population estimate, utilizing the same population models that have been utilized here. And guess what? Those populations are not only healthy, they are thriving. We have brought back bighorn sheep from the brink of extinction 30 years ago to where we have more bighorn sheep in Nevada than any other state in the Union other than Alaska. paid for by sportsmen's dollars. Science provided by the Department of Wildlife and their, quite frankly, pretty magnificent professionals of their biologists. We also have more elk and more antelope in the state at any time since the coming of white men. Okay, that's what the management principles of the Department of Wildlife, their biologists, have brought about. Yes, with sportsman dollars, great partnerships with federal, state, and private agencies and NGOs, but at the same time, that's what we're capable of, and that's what our performance records are. The science is clear. Unfortunately, there are going to be experts.
15 seconds.
There can have differing opinions, and hey, unfortunately these days, science is for sale. But again, I want you to look at the performance records that the Department of Wildlife has developed over the years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I understand Beverly McGrath came back.
I'm so sorry, and thank you for allowing me to speak. Beverly McGrath, and I represent Northern Nevada SPCA, PAWPAC, Action for Animals, Nevada Political Action for Animals, Compassion Charity for Animals, and Animal Switchboard. You've heard from the sportsmen. I'd like to quote Nevada Revised Statute 501-297, which says, "The board shall solicit and evaluate local opinion regarding wildlife." I'd like to remind you of your purpose, the purpose of the Nevada Board of Wildlife Commission, which says you are also obligated to preserve and protect wildlife. In Nevada Revised Statute 501-100, wildlife in this state not domesticated in its natural habitat is part of the natural resources belonging to the people of the state of Nevada. Well, we are the people. I would like for you to listen to us and not just the sportsmen. We have a major vested interest in this. Since the Nevada Revised Statutes state that wildlife as a natural resource belongs to the people, we would hope that you would consider the opinions and desires of the people. The majority of the people living in Nevada are concerned about Nevada housing market, the economy. Real estate agents focus on safe environments, safe neighborhoods for the people that are relocating here and living here. When someone is hiking in the area, they don't want to be encountered by a bear that has just been shot by a bow and arrow or wounded. They want to be assured that they're hiking in a safe environment. The documents provided by the Clark County Advisory Board to manage wildlife state that hunters comprise 1% of the population in Nevada, and bear hunters are 1% of that 1%. Now, how many other people are there that are opposed to the bear hunt? I sent you the Northern Nevada newspaper poll that shows that it's overwhelming that the citizens of Nevada do not want a bear hunt. We keep hearing the nuisance issue bears. And the Nevada Department of Wildlife states that 95% of the complaints were about bears relating to garbage. And is it 65%? Just 1 second. Yes, 65% of those complaints were in Washoe County, where they do not have a garbage ordinance requiring bear-proof containers. However, there are minimal complaints in Douglas County, where they do have a bear-proof container ordinance, and they enforce it. So that is a major consideration. We keep hearing reference to statistics. I'd just like to go over one bit of statistics related by Carl Lackey, that in 2009 there were 39 captures. Let's just take that one figure. 36 of those were individual bears. Of the 36, 21 were bears not previously captured, but 15 were recaptures. 6 bears were captured for research purposes. Comparatively, 18 bears were captured specifically in response to a conflict situation. What I'm trying to show here is that these statistics can be tweaked one way or the other. And that's a consideration for you. But a major consideration for you is public opinion. The groups that we represent, that are represented here today, that you have heard from, are in opposition to a bear hunt. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ray Frazier. Will Frazier. Oh, Ray. Okay.
Just want to come up and say I support the bear hunt. Being a hunter, fourth generation hunter, I was recently successful in getting a bear. Thank you.
Will Frazier.
My name is Will Frazier. I'm a 4th generation veteran and a hunter. First, I'd like to applaud the board for allowing this bear hunt to continue and for the bear hunt we're currently having. They've been talking about polls. Me and my buddies, we've never been asked about the polls, about if we support bear hunting or not, so I'm not sure who's getting asked those polls, if they're Californians or Nevadans. Second, I'd like to say I don't see any news cameras here anymore talking about now that we have pro hunters on here, there's nobody here to tell about us. You look in the news tonight, all you can hear is about the anti-hunters have already spoken, all the bigwigs. Second, people who talk about the bear meat. I find that the black bear meat is very eatable, as I had some delicious backstrap on Wednesday. And I'd also like to say that if this was any other kind of animal, same statistically speaking, if this was any other kind of animal, if it was a wild hog, none of these people would be here. It's the bear they care about, the cubital eyes and whatever else. If it was any kind of animal, none of them would be here talking about it. I'd also like to commend Mr. Lackey with his great presentation. I feel that his stats are very sound, that he makes very good points that I find very hard to go against. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe Blakesley.
For the record, Joe Blakesley, speaking as a director for Coalition for Nevada's Wildlife. Basically, all I want to say is thank you to Endow and to Carl Lackey for an excellent presentation, and to go on the record saying that I would urge you to make a permanent regulation here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Smith.
Many of you have already seen the document that I'm going to read. I was not even going to bring it up until a lot of the personal attacks, especially against Carl Lackey today. So I'm going to read this in its entirety. Issuing a permit for no more than 20 bears when there are more than 400 and stopping all hunting for them when 6 sows are harvested, that would sound like management to any reasonable person. The licensing tags that are issued brings money into the department that gets little money from the general public or the general fund. These sportsman dollars allow them to manage bears. Annual hunting will probably bring in around $100,000. Carl Lackey and other Endow employees spend a lot of time responding to the general public asking for help with troublesome bears. His salary is paid for funds generated by hunting of other species. These are sportsman's dollars that are being diverted from management of other species. Carl has asked every county commission to pass laws that prevent bears from getting into garbage containers, and only one county has passed laws making this mandatory. Carl also spends time relocating problem bears from people's trash cans and yards back to the forests and mountains where they belong, after having been displaced by those who took their habitat for homes. He has relocated many bears back to the wild. He has also captured orphan bears that need care. All of this takes money that hunters and fishermen provide. When bears cannot be controlled in any other way and become a public danger, he has to put them down. This is heartbreaking work for any wildlife manager. Indel manages non-game species as well, including many birds, reptiles, mammals that are not hunted. Again, it's sportsman dollars that are spent. Wouldn't it be great if those who find hunting distasteful provided Indel with funds as well? And those that don't want to see problem bears put down should be asking their county commission to make bear-proof containers the law. In the meantime, hunting is a viable management tool that makes money available for other types of bear management, as well as permanent regulation of hunting should be approved. In a position paper put out by No Bear Hunt Nevada and Chris Schwarmberger, she used only a portion of NRS 501-105 to show that the Wildlife Commission is in direct violation of their statutory duties, when in fact the statute says quite the opposite. The entire text of NRS 501-105 is as follows as it pertains to the Wildlife Commission. Commission to establish policies and adopt regulations. The Commission shall establish policies and adopt regulations necessary to preservation and protection. That's where they stop. It also says management and restoration of wildlife and its habitat. So that is the responsibility of the Wildlife Commission. This is the same regulation that's used to manage deer, elk, sheep, antelope, rabbits, fish, game birds, and every other huntable species in Nevada. If we buy into the only preserve or protect language that No Bear Hunt Nevada is promoting as the entire regulation, then you can assume they would like this regulation to be applied to all of our game species. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Mel Bill.
Good afternoon.
You don't need the microphone.
Mel Belding, Washoe County. I think today everybody got to witness probably the most professional, best presentation that's ever been put on at this department. And I think Carl Lackey should be commended for that. You know, yesterday I spent 14 hours hauling water into a guzzler that's dry in Mineral County with this guy right here. And we do it every day, every month. Sportsmen do it. We come up to the plate. And I just want to say that Carl Lackey's honesty, his character is impeccable, and it hurts for me to listen to people that come up here and say that he's not honest, because he is an honest person, and his character is impeccable. I want to say that. I'd also like to say that hunting is the most widely recognized and accepted control of big game populations, management. It is most widely respected and recognized. 2007, I'd like Carl to take a look at maybe some numbers, why we had so many fatalities or mortalities then. And I think it's in a direct correlation to the amount of cars and traffic that we had around the lake in 2007. I think there's some correlation there, and I think that would be interesting to see. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lloyd Peak.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Peak. I live in South Reno. I have looked at, I believe, every single page of documentation that has been produced on both sides, or all sides, I should say.
Can't hear you.
Sorry. I've looked at, I think, all of the documentation that's been produced on all sides of the bear hunting issue over the past few months. I've been to a number of the NDOW meetings. I followed this issue very carefully. I'm not a scientist. I'm an old beat-up professor, but after looking at all the documents and hearing the testimony, two things, as I indicated at a meeting not too long ago, seem to be quite clear. Two things. Number one, that in several key respects, the science regarding this hunt is in dispute. It's in conflict. With that in mind, I think most of us in this room could agree with that statement. With that in mind, and given the significant amount of public attention that this issue has garnered, not only in the state of Nevada, but now across this nation, I would strongly urge the commission to exercise extreme care and due diligence to, at the very least, review all of the available data from the current hunt and solicit an independent review of all the relevant science in this matter before approving permanent hunting. And I think the second thing, the two things that I suggested are quite clear, finally, is that this commission, as a matter of law, is obliged to protect and preserve the wildlife in the state of Nevada, including, of course, bears. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick McLaughlin.
Good afternoon. My name is Patrick McLaughlin. I'm a resident of Nevada for 45 years. I've been a hunter since I was 16 years old. I'm against the current bear hunt, and I wish you would stop it as soon as you can, and do not make it a permanent bear hunt. I'm just one of thousands of people who have been spoken with and signed for you people to listen to us. We don't want the bear hunt. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca Williams.
Hi there, my name is Rebecca Williams, and I appreciate your time. I just want to say for the record again that I am against the adoption of the bear hunt for many of the reasons mentioned here today, but I just also want to add that Carl spoke about the revenue that could potentially be generated through this bear hunt through Mendel and for the state of Nevada. And I just want you to know that it should be and hopefully will be the expectation that Endow will put a significant amount of these funds back towards the mission of preserving and protecting the wildlife and the bears. Public lands really need to and should be funded. Places such as Nevada State Parks, Helena Recreation Area, Sky Tavern, funded to support an installation of the bear-proof garbage containers. You know, these are places that really cannot do this on their own financial fees. This kind of a program could be offered through grants that was once similar to received through the Incline Village General Improvement District from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. 2 years ago, it was $25,000 given towards the habitat and protection of black bears by the installation of these garbage can enclosures, so that the bears could travel through that urban interface without being tempted by trash. You know, these bears sometimes have to move through the urban interface to get to streams and to drinking water sources. So I just really want to urge the board to even maybe write into the regulations that some of these funds are going to go back to providing habitat protection for these bears.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all the cards that I have that specifically said item 5 are bears. You have cards that were turned in that didn't mark what they were going to speak on. I have Les Smith.
Les Smith, Nevada Regional Director for Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. I'm here today representing 5,000 members in the state of Nevada and 180,000 members nationwide. We recently did a series of surveys of our membership and past members and people who've never been members who are actively involved in elk hunting, and they came back with one thing. They want to see a balance in wildlife management. And it's really easy to get 18,000 signatures standing outside a grocery store. And it's really easy to sign a petition as you're headed home. But that's not support, that's just a signature. I expect that you will not be bullied by this number. Support is the hours and hours of time and effort and the millions and millions of dollars that are poured into wildlife management in this state by the sportsmen in the state. And so when they say they want a balance in wildlife management, and in particular with this bear hunt, we're not thrilled with the way that this happened. But the hunt is here. And given that situation, our membership feels that this is a legitimate wildlife management tool, and it's one that should be kept in place for the purpose of managing wildlife, and especially bears, A lot is being made about this being a stressed population of bears. A stressed population of bears doesn't have triplets. A stressed population of bears doesn't turn out a 750-pound boar. This is a very healthy population of bears in terms of numbers and in terms of their use of the habitat. And so we would ask that the hunt continue as a way of adding balance to this management plan. I think that this commission should urge the Department of Wildlife to send a bill every time Carl Lackey is sent out on a nuisance bear call to the municipality or county in whose boundaries that call occurs, and let them worry about paying for it. If they're not willing to pass any kind of ordinance requiring people to get their garbage off the streets and keep their dog food in where it can be protected, then they need to worry about it. And one last thing, I used to work for this outfit. I worked right along Carl Lackey for a lot of years, and it does bother me a lot to hear bad things said about him. I was here from the very beginning, and he has done nothing but work very hard to have a good relationship with everybody up at the lake and anybody who has had a bear problem. And I just want to put my 2 bits in that I think he's doing a great job. I think he's very scientific. I think his integrity is great. And he deserves the respect not only of this commission, but also all members of this audience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gerald Wynn. Donald Drake. Brandon Weiss.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you for having us here and hearing our thoughts. I'm a 4th-generation Nevadan, landowner, rancher, and sportsman. My family's owned over 7,000 acres throughout the state, and in the 26 years that I have personally lived here, hunted, fished, and ranched these lands, I can tell you that over the last 10 years, just on a property that we have that was originally 4,000 acres and is now smaller on the east slopes of the Sierras, in the last 10 years, I've had well over 10 encounters with black bears just in my yard. One of those was inside our house, and Carl Lackey was the gentleman that came to deal with that every time. He was professional about it. Everything that he did was by the book. He was willing to, do whatever it took to take care of the problem humanely, without having to relocate the bears and not have to put the bears down. That being said, we've heard a lot of numbers thrown out today. 18,000, all these signatures, all these supporters, all these things that we have. But not once has anybody said where those signatures have come from. Were they from California side of Lake Tahoe, or were they from the Nevada side of Lake Tahoe? Who were those from? The people that are presenting those, are they native Nevadans? Have any of them put any money into helping to preserve the wildlife? Has any of their dollars, their personal out-of-pocket money, gone into preserving anything? Building guzzlers, have any of them done anything? Have they got up? Have any of you guys gone out and built guzzlers? Have any of you relocated animals yourself? How many of you have actually got up and done something to help with the wildlife population? Not just sat down, looked up numbers on a computer that you think are true or that you think are credible and presented them to, a bunch of other naysayers. There's no telling where those numbers came from, and you can't speak from experience and come up here and belittle people and say that they're full, of garbage when you haven't got up to do anything about it yourself. It's easy to sit here and criticize the hunters. It's easy to sit here and criticize the board. But until you've got off your butt, gone out, built guzzlers, relocated animals, fixed wetlands, or done any of those things, you don't have any room to speak. And that's all I need to say. Thank you.
That's all the cards I have. Is any other?
There was one individual who asked me to relate his comments.
Actually, we do have a couple more people. Can we finish up with you once we get back?
Yes.
You'll be the first one. Gentleman back there with the card.
I just retired recently, and I just kind of wandered in here wondering what was going on. I didn't plan to speak.
Sir, would you please state your name for the record?
Yeah, Alan Pressler from Carson City, Nevada.
Thank you.
I've been a Nevada resident for almost 40 years now. I've been an on-again, off-again sportsman and hunter. I don't have any real super strong feelings on this issue. It's obvious that there's many people here that do. It's also obvious to me that the deck's really stacked in here, but that's what democracy is all about. I would like to take issue with the statistics and the numbers insofar as the majority of people, great majority of people being against this hunt. I consider myself one of the silent majority of Nevadans that I'm not against hunting and not against bear hunting, that are not against regulated sport hunting based on solid wildlife biology. So, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Laura Larson left a card. If she wanted to speak, there's a note on the back. I'm just going to give it to Suzanne to put into the record.
Okay, anybody else from the public? Yeah. Have you put in a card, ma'am?
Yeah, I wasn't here when my name was called.
Oh, well, what's your name?
Barbara Moss.
Yes, I did.
Come on in.
My name is Barbara Moss. I'm here in support of the bears. It has not verifiably been established as to how killing the bears will increase their population. If humans used bear-safe trash cans and controlled their own footprint, then the urban bears wouldn't be any problem. I think this needs to be pursued in this manner to find a solution, not just to find a quick fix. If the number of bears ever do become a problem beyond what it is, it's minor at this point, then there are efficient and humane ways to resolve this issue. And I wish that you would look into those before you make this bear hunt permanent. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and bring her back to the commission. Scott, did you want to go ahead and...
Yeah, there was just to relate public comment. There was an individual who was here for 3 hours this morning. He had to leave, named Kelly Strain. He wanted to relate that he was in favor of bear hunt, that he'd been on bear hunts this year, and he thought it was a really good thing. It was a very humane way to take care of bears. So just relating his comments.
Okay. Okay. Commissioners, this is the workshop, informational. We've already had a lot of discussion and an opportunity to talk to Carl and to Maureen and to Dr. Beckman. But we've now just heard from the public. And does anybody on the commission have any comments that they would like to make with respect to the public comment that we've received this afternoon, well, this morning and this afternoon? Commissioner Howell?
I'd just like to commend Carl Lackey for his presentation. I thought it was terrific. And it's very well presented,
Yeah, Commissioner Drew.
Just a brief comment. I'd like to thank the people that took the time to come here today. I know it's busy on a Friday, but it means a lot no matter what side of the issue you're on to come here and show that you're interested and engaged in this process. So I appreciate it. For the most part, I think everyone conducted themselves in a very professional manner, and that means a lot to me.
Anybody else? I want to make one comment, and it is with regard to Carl Lackey. I'm one of the commissioners who've been here since the beginning, and and I've been dealing with Carl in this process. And he's always been absolutely professional in every respect in dealing with my questions and dealing with this entire process as I watched him go through. Carl had a moment of maybe what we call a lack of judgment in sending out an email, and he's been now attacked. I guess that's a strong word, but I really do feel unfairly, and the credibility of the science has been put at issue, and I find that just lacking in support in my mind. And the reason is because it hasn't been just Carl Lackey. He has had 2 PhD doctors side by side with him the entire time in doing these studies. You would have to assert a conspiracy of some type between these 3 gentlemen to somehow sway this data and this analysis of the science, of this program, to convince me that there's been any bias and there isn't any credibility problem with anybody, and especially Carl Lackey. So I just feel it's very unfortunate that his act, his single one act, has somehow risen to the top and caused people to doubt what it is that the department is doing, and also what the 2 doctors have done in conjunction with the University of Nevada, Reno. So in my mind, Carl and the work he's done and the presentations he's made to this commission are rock solid, and I'm 100% behind the science on this, and I have no doubts at all in my mind. And so I just wanted to state that for the record. Anybody else? Any comments? Okay, we're done with agenda item number 5.